Hello, everyone. Welcome to our special professional development webinar on value-added internships. We have folks coming into the webinar now. We are very excited to have you all with us. We are recording our session today, and we just want to thank you all for joining us. And to save bandwidth for all of our attendees, we ask that everyone turn off their cameras and mute themselves during the presentation so that we can maintain that bandwidth throughout the webinar. And we will be monitoring the chat to share your questions with our presenters. And we'll be putting those up as they come in. I have Maddie Heron with the Fossil Rim Wildlife Center helping me out today with tech and also attendance and sharing those questions in the chat. And as I mentioned, we are recording today's session, and I will share the recording link with you all in a follow-up email next week. If you are uncomfortable with your name showing, you can change your name to anonymous and then private message Maddie in the chat with your name for our attendance records, because she will be taking attendance today. And another note also, if your Zoom name does not match the name you registered with, please either change it in the settings or let Maddie know so she can document that in our registration list. I know folks are still coming in, but I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children in Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I am on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Santa people. Our ongoing colonial presence on indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. And here in a bit, I'm going to be putting some links about the land acknowledgement into the chat. But right now, I would like to go ahead and welcome our speakers. We have two speakers today. Our first speaker is Lauren Maples. She is the founder and executive director of Partners for Education, Agriculture, and Sustainability, also known as PEAS, based in Austin. And we also have Carrie Merson. She is the brand and public communications officer with the San Antonio River Authority. So I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Lauren to start off the webinar. And as she's presenting, you all are welcome to put your questions in the chat, and there'll be a little bit of time at the end of her presentation to answer those questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks for having me here today, and thanks to all of you who have come out for this webinar. I am going to switch over to share my screen here. And all right, I can't really see anyone, so if there are questions, please pop them in the chat, and I'm sure Alice can help direct those to me. Yes, we are Partners for Education, Agriculture, and Sustainability, PEAS, in Austin, Texas. Our mission is to cultivate joyful connections with the natural world through outdoor learning and edible education. We primarily work on elementary school, and we are piloting middle school programming right now, campuses. And we started on one campus as a community farm. It was a parent-based initiative in conjunction with the principal at that time, as a way of making the space, which is also a joint use space with the city of Austin, making it more available to the community and just really inviting people to be a part of the space. So yeah, we started off in a field. There were 3 baseball fields, so one of them got dedicated to the community farm. And I was a parent there, and then also a certified teacher. So when a teaching position opened up, I started teaching there as well. And so all my kids and my volunteer time could happen in one place. And with that, I realized what an opportunity it was to be able to teach outside with my classes, but also what a challenge it was to be able to get all the materials, manage them outside, plan for teaching in a bigger space, which has a whole different set of expectations for students out there. And so with that realization and getting to do some research on that, we launched as a nonprofit in 2015. I continued teaching and piloting some of my ideas as a teacher. And then we launched into 8 schools the first year. People were eager to have us and invite us on their campuses. And then after that, it's just been growing slowly with, of course, a pause in COVID like everybody else. And we are now in 32 schools. We have a total of 44 programs in 32 schools. So we are using our mission as our guide, and we are different than a lot of programs because it does take place during the school day. And so we are working directly with the schools and their communities and whatever spaces work best for us to be able to make that nature connection with our students. Our services are our school programs. We have done 3 weeks of camp in the past. We're going to try a 4th week this summer. We do professional development, primarily with teachers who are going to take the programming directly back into their classrooms, but we do have a level of professional development more at a district level, and we do provide consultations to district and school level agencies. So our program model is a deep dive program. We work with 5 classes per day per school, and we see those same classes for the entire school year every other week. We start in October because it's really hot here in September, and we want to, have an enjoyable experience for the first time out in the year and get the teachers engaged, get the students engaged. And so this gives us about 14 lessons with each class annually. We know the research is that the repeated exposure is really what hooks kids in being excited about being outdoors and learning outdoors. So we really try to make sure we're giving them a lot of opportunity for exploration during our lessons, and then really highlight the joyful moments that we have together. Oops. Our venues are vegetable gardens, rain gardens, pollinator and wildlife habitats, and tree groves. So we will work with any campus that is interested in getting their students outside for learning. I didn't put fields here, but sometimes it's happened a couple times where a school is planning one of these spaces, but they don't have it yet, but we start working with them while they're in the process. So in some cases, we are looking at, the biodiversity of the grass in a field, but we can find connections to the, academics in all those spaces. And it's become a really intensive program because, as your programs probably are, they're human powered, and our people are our programs. So we are really understanding that just how much energy it takes to be able to do what we do and do it well. And we thought long and hard before we decided to engage in an intern model and bring interns in to come and help support that work, knowing that we can't invite an intern in to just do work. We need to make this a mutually beneficial experience for them. So we decided that we had the capacity last year to begin our initial stages of our hopefully creating a workforce development pathway. And so the idea is that we would bring an intern on who wanted to learn, who was very interested in learning about our programs, specifically our in-school programs. And also we do run the community farm on the weekends. That is an opportunity for 3 different things. It does have an orchard on it. So there's a experience with trees, there's an experience with the vegetables, and then we also have a large pollinator habitat. So depending what groups we're working with and what their interests are, we can help plug in volunteers into those spaces and families from the school as well. So we realize that with our internship program that we wanted to find out what the interns were interested in learning and growing. And so last year we started with one intern, and he was very interested in being a part of the volunteer network and coordinating and communicating with volunteers. And so that was an area that he just plugged into, really, or asked to plug into on his own. And then in the meantime, we had him out in schools and working with some of our staff to learn more about the programs, the ins and outs of our programs. And in the spring, he was eager for more hours. We started him at about 15 hours, and he said he really had 25 hours. So as more opportunities opened up, we were able to plug him in into other aspects of our work. We found out he has a talent for teaching. He wanted to lead a few of the lessons, and he just really could shine in the interactions with the students, and really understood, because he got to see our program in several different schools with several different of our lead educators. He really understood the flavor of what we were trying to accomplish. And so we offered, when we had a position open up over the summer, we did offer him a position as an outdoor education specialist in training. So this fall, and by the way, this is Andre in this picture. This fall, he's been training with us, and he is on schedule to start working independently in the spring. He has really, for me to go out, usually if we have a staff member come to us that has not been a classroom teacher before, there are things that, like pacing and setting the parameters for the outdoor learning area, that sometimes take a little time to really get a real good grasp on. And I went to see his first lesson independently. I was so impressed with just how much he had learned in such a short period of time. But he was practicing with our team, two of our program managers, as his coach for the first 6 weeks of school. And it shows that dedication and that time that they invested in working with him really paid off. It first seemed like it was a big investment, because it was really, it's time intensive for two of our program managers to be working with one staff member so intently. But when I think back to it now, 6 weeks really isn't that much time when the quality of what is coming out of that is so good. So just a little bit about how we are hoping to finish rolling out our Intern to Educator program. We started last fall with just ensuring our staff had the capacity to even host an intern. Then last spring, we brought on our first intern, who you just met in that previous slide. And then we determined our organizational needs versus his skills and his interests, and created a plan for the spring of how to help him plug into our programming, and also make sure that we are helping him develop some of the skills he really wanted to develop. And then we're currently in our stage 3. That's this fall. We have our first specialist in training, which is super exciting. And then we've brought on 2 new interns who will, who are doing similar to what happened in the spring, but we realized that there was a really cool opportunity here to augment their internship with more professional development. So we have bi-weekly meetings where we discuss things, articles or videos, webinars will be assigned to the interns, and then we come back together, discuss the ones from the previous 2 weeks, and then start planning for the next 2 weeks. And as we're going through this, my team realized, like, oh, these are some things I'd like to be refreshed on. So it's actually opened up augmented professional development for our entire team. And they have a little bit of time on Friday afternoons that is really for their set aside for their own professional development. And so they're using those hours now to redigest and look into the same professional development our interns are looking into, which makes a really nice common language when we come together for our educator meetings. So in the spring of 2022, we will can graduate our first intern, and he will be a full-on specialist with us. And our second interns will be able to, if they're interested in taking on more hours before we hire anyone, we have some programming that's expanding a little bit. Before we hire anyone, we will offer those hours and that opportunity for education to them. Looking at the investment in the resources that we are putting into this, it's our staff time is the biggest one. There is an application process. We had a hiring and an orientation process. We are working, the schedule coordination between all the other staff members in the different programming. And then this new professional development piece is a piece of our staff time. And then our coaching, which is usually one-on-one or small group coaching in our direct programs. So having them, the coaches model a lesson, and then the staff or the intern co-lead with them. And then in a later lesson in the afternoon, the intern leads with the coach being the assistant in that. And then the other piece of our resources that this is costing us is funding. Our interns are being paid $16 an hour currently, which seemed like we were making some good leaps in that area, but then the cost of living in Austin just keeps rising. So I'm hoping that we can still get that up a little higher in the coming years. And then for our specialist in training, that got rolled into our staff budget. So we were able to reinvest some of the money that we've set aside for interns back into our internship program. Some ways that we got money for this particular pilot was we had a small $3,000 seed grant that I didn't even feel like was really enough to start an internship with, but I knew that there was a good chance that we would be able to, get another mini grant or some other small amount of funding to create at least a 1 semester package for the intern. And the opportunity then, right after we got the seed grant, arose that I was able to pitch this idea of growing our internship program at Philanthropitch. It was during South by Southwest EDU last year. That was one of the most terrifying experiences of my professional life, presenting up in front of a whole bunch of people, and they wanted me to have a memorized speech. But we won an award of $17,500 out of that, and that is what helped us continue Andre's internship, and we were able to keep him employed throughout the summer, so there were no gaps in his employment, and then to begin the seed funding for his fall program. And then we are continuing to fundraise for our 2 new interns, and we did get another mini grant that is helping us. And now we are writing all our internships into a portion of other larger grants. When I wrap up, I would be really interested in learning about other people, how they are funding their programs, or maybe this can even be later after Carrie's presentation. But I know there are a lot of people out there from entities that may have been doing having internships for a long time, and I'd be interested in learning how long your programs are going, and then also what are some creative ways you've been able to fund them. Looking at from our side, the cost benefit analysis, the price is one thing, but and the time investment felt really heavy in September and October because our staff was maxed out to every minute of every day and beyond. Our staff was, was working. But after we got to this point where we see how engaged Andre has become with our organization and with specifically our students and our school communities, there's really no doubt that the $16 an hour is paying off way more than even for us as an organization, I see it's paying off for our community, our much larger community, that there is a young man who's able to build his career pathway. He was at the community college and not sure that, what direction he wanted to go, and didn't realize environmental education was even a pathway at the time. So I think he's pretty hooked on what he's doing, and it feels good to know that we have an awesome representative of our work and our mission out in schools. So I feel that that's a piece that, when I don't know, I feel like in the Western world, where we look at everything kind of through this corporate lens, that we are often looking at profit. And in a nonprofit, we know the whole investment is about the mission. And while this is one person that is getting served through this program, or now 2 people through this program, the ripple effects are really big. He will be working independently with almost 600 students on a recurring basis in the spring. And if we think about the longevity of his career, he's going to be working probably with 500 to 600 students every year. And that's a huge impact that is not captured in a typical cost benefit analysis. And I'm putting this in the presentation, and Alice can share it with you all later if you would like to contact us or learn more about Pease Community. Our website, is peasecommunity.org, if you'd like to learn more about what we do. And I am going to stop sharing my screen now and ask Alice if we want to take questions now or wait till the end.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was a really wonderful presentation, and I like the ending part about the cost benefit and the true value to the intern and the community at large and the students. That's awesome. So we do have a little bit of time if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask Lauren about anything she presented on. And I had also put in there to share how you all might be funding internships. It's an age-old question. That's why we're doing this webinar.
And also, if people wouldn't mind sharing if they have been working with interns, how long they've been working with interns.
Nothing's coming up in the chat yet. Don't be shy. Jonathan says that he's been working with interns for over a year. Awesome.
And what organization is TTC, Jonathan?
Well, Jonathan is responding. Corinne Pierce asks, how did you make a framework for the stages of your intern plan?
The framework just, it grew organically. We knew what our vision was, and then we took our opportunities for our funding versus our time and our staff capacity to roll it out in a pace that that seemed manageable for the whole team.
Okay, thank you. We have another we have a comment from Liz Johannick. I've been working with interns for 2 years. We fund through budgets and lots of partnerships. Yes, so actually we're planning for our next professional development webinar to be on partnering with AmeriCorps to fund internships. So yeah, I can imagine that partnerships is a big part of it. Lauren, have you had any experience with internship partnerships?
Not at this point. We did work with some staff that contracted with us that worked for, I guess they were AmeriCorps, that were working with another entity that needed some more. I guess they were supposed to volunteer in the community or get some additional hours with other organizations. So we were able to subcontract with them for a couple of projects, which was very helpful at the time. But it was a very short-term thing, so we couldn't really promise a lot of the other benefits of interning.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And then Liz added Skill Bridge is a great one with the military for a partnership, which is
All
probably
right.
very relevant. I see that she's in San Antonio. Very relevant.
Yeah, I think I know someone who works with that. Thank you for yeah, reminding me about that one.
Jasmine also, it's the San Antonio Botanic Garden. I've been host to volunteers in the past as a zookeeper and nature education manager, but I'm going to start an internship program in my new role as a volunteer specialist at the San Antonio Botanical Garden. We currently do not have a structured internship program. Well, that will be a fun project for you, Yasmin. So any advice to Jasmine in that endeavor?
Well, it sounds like there are a lot of people in this room with a lot of expertise. So maybe after Carrie gets to present, maybe we can come back to some of the, I think Carrie's going to share some stuff that might be helpful in her presentation, and then we could come back to answer some of those questions.
Great. Yeah, we will keep monitoring the chat, and yeah, we'll go ahead and have Carrie introduce herself and share her screen to start her presentation.
Hey everybody, Carrie Merson here, and let me just get that going. So many windows you can open up here. I want to make sure I got the right one. All right. Is that about right? You can see the home screen?
Yes, we can.
Very good. All right. Well, I wanted to say thanks for inviting me. And I also want to say, you know, Lauren's a hard act to follow, very methodical and thorough. And I really, you know, gleaned a lot from that. And so thanks, Lauren. And it does look like we have a lot of experts. And so I would love to also know how many people are, you know, kind of interested in doing a fresh program, or if you do have experience, it would be helpful to me as well. So, and I wanted to say too, Lauren had a lot of parallels to my experience as well. So once again, I work for the San Antonio River Authority, and we are, let's see, it's not moving forward. There we go. And just quickly about me, here in San Antonio, I'm now an engagement officer because the background is largely education and engagement. And I've been with the River Authority for about 9 years, but before then I was a wildlife biologist and formal educator kind of equally. And I have an amazing team that I've grown from an intern to, I actually have four staff now. And I also competitively ride horses, and also I am a BTS fan. So anybody out there, contact me. Okay. The San Antonio River Authority actually has a 4-county jurisdiction, so a pretty large area to cover. And so the idea of having an intern felt kind of like a no-brainer when I first onboarded. Because I wanted to basically make sure that we had more coverage to the entire basin. So that's kind of how it was introduced and how I brought it forward. Because ultimately, I think that initially when we start, you know, thinking about internship programs, it's kind of the first underlying thought is, you know, we need somebody. And you know, for us, I'm only going to speak from, you know, our experience with the education and engagement internships. Of course, it's why we needed the help, but also what it started to kind of formulate into is providing, you know, leadership opportunities for team members, but also it, you know, provides opportunities for the intern as well to own something. You know, it does create kind of a sustainability for your organization too, and things I didn't realize until I was really developing this, like how really you get new perspectives and fresh perspectives that your whole team may have not occurred to them because they may not be familiar with the trends that are coming up that the intern knows. Of course, those trial periods could become more, and they have with my team. They become brand advocates for you when they leave, and you really do get a sense, as Lauren kind of noted, that you're giving back to the community as well. And I think that those are all kind of just critical pieces to jump off of once you start to understand that it becomes more about all those other things too. And then of course, what else for me, it is, giving people a chance. And I have a bit of a background story. I was 34 or 35. I had been a formal educator and had gone back to school to do a master's degree in wildlife biology. And when I came back into San Antonio after being away, I actually had a local state agency give me a chance and I got to be an intern here at 34, 35. And I was looking to bridge the two careers, and they gave me a chance to do that. And so it's not common for people to take adults that are in their 30s or 40s or whatnot, but at the same time that they did, and it's become something that was helped me learn a lot, but also let me demonstrate, and then also bridge those gaps between the two careers that I was searching for. And I think too, one of the things to keep in mind, because I have that fresh perspective of being an intern from just 13 years ago, is maybe not so fresh, but the keeping in mind the intern perspective, right? So I feel like I need some help, right? But they need something too. I think that is very different than your average, part-time or full-time employee. It's different for them. And so I keep that in mind, all the time. And for me, it was an influential moment. And then all of the experience that I've had with all the interns that I've had have become influential moments for both of us. There's ways to feel, there's opportunities that made us feel triumphant together. We struggled together sometimes. Sometimes I was trying to figure out how to articulate things in a way that is new and fresh, because they're bringing such new and fresh perspectives. Reflecting together, they'll tell you things that they're not afraid to tell you, that maybe because they know that their time is limited with you. So they're looking to really show off, what they know and things like that. And they'll be very honest most times. And I feel like it's a gift in both directions too. And then what I've really cherished is that I've had these ongoing relationships after they've left. And I also have an ongoing relationship with my mentors from my internship, even though I'm, 40 something years old. Don't tell anybody I'm not that old. All right. And then we do have like a single rule, and I should say by we, I mean, it's me that has a single rule. It's passed down from another, boss that I used to have in my internship role, but it was just be awesome, right? So, when you're interviewing them, they're going to try to demonstrate or show that they have a particular skill set, but in the end, sometimes it's not as where they thought it was or anything like that. So, just guiding them to just be awesome. And so there's plenty of things that are not awesome, like being late or, not showing up groomed, let's say, or something like that for a presentation. But, if they're just putting their best foot forward and in that term that they have with you, I think that that's really my single rule for them. But the rules for the agency, just so that you're, having a perspective, we fund the internship program through taxpayer dollars because we're a government agency. And so we don't have to actually, go out like Lauren needs to for, grants and things like that. So I really admire that, Lauren's having to take these extra steps, and any nonprofit probably has to do the same. And so a lot of respect for that, because I know it's very difficult. And some other things too is that they cannot drive, any of our fleet vehicles, or they can't even show up after they get to the office. They can't just go to another office that we have. We have to actually transport them ourselves for a liability issue, and they have to stay under 29.9 hours per week. And I wish I knew what was going on with that single word can. But the other thing for the agency is that we decided that accountability is not super tight, meaning it's a learning process for these interns, and that we should not be leaning on them for deliverables, meaning once again, they're going to come in and not have maybe what they thought were certain skills. So, perhaps I'd like them to write a draft for a blog, and maybe their writing skills weren't what they thought they were and what we thought they were when we hired them. And so we have to be able to have that time, like Lauren was talking about with, is it more work for us? You have to be able to be like, okay, that's okay. Let's work together to actually do some learning and some growth. And so those are things that we keep in mind. We do pay our interns $15 an hour currently. So even Lauren's program is, a little bit more, I don't know, attractive, maybe to an intern. So just to describe a little bit more about my team interns, we had 6 since 2014. And with COVID, of course, for like the 2.5, 3 years, we really didn't have any internship program. But until then, we had one that was still in the university, and she was our most recent one this last spring. 2 of the interns we hired had just graduated and had another, full-time, part-time job somewhere. So they were having to kind of balance all that out. And then 3 were actually my age, kind of trying to bridge careers, right? So that was kind of fascinating. Some of them had teaching backgrounds, some of them had just pure presentation backgrounds, but what they all had in common was a sincere interest in sustainability and education and nature. And so that's kind of where we would hang our hat when selecting these folks. Agency-wide, just for your awareness, we have some other internship opportunities, though they're not as high profile or necessarily, except for our aquatic biologists. They actually have kind of a very formal internship that has a very special name and everything like that. But these are also some of the other folks that have an intern occasionally. So on the onboarding process, what we kind of developed over a period of a year, and some of this was right away, was we want to make sure to give them the full tour, right? And so like just, very laid back, meeting everybody. And I know that seems like a no-brainer for some of us, but I was surprised to find out, through some of my other conversations with other programs and agency coordinators, that that's not something that's top of mind. Sometimes the person just shows up, here's your desk, here are the tasks, okay, let's go have lunch. And so just kind of giving them even these nuanced tours, and providing all of those policies that you have in full, like right up front, and just kind of meeting over that is really helpful. Once again, only stating this because sometimes people have told me that they don't do that, and the interns that have given me feedback said that was pretty critical for them. We actually have them study our website for the first week. So that we have so much information. Not everybody I know has like these massive websites. We happen to have a massive website. So they get familiar with our engineering, our art, our nature, everything, like just to get a comprehensive view of our agency. And if they don't do the 30 hours that week, that's understandable, but that's just the chief goal, is get to know us, and also we introduce in that first week team building with the local group, and then I make sure they know everybody. So with a smaller team nonprofit, that's probably quick and it happens briefly, but for a larger place, let's say the San Antonio Botanical Center, that might be actually a bit more detailed or timely or time consumptive. We invite them to non-relevant meetings. So, if we know that there is a non-critical meeting where it doesn't have to be closed door, we'll take them to other meetings that may not be relevant to education specifically, just so that they can start to bridge some of those concepts that we have at the agency that are beyond, nature-based or environmental-based. And we asked them, very specifically in that first week, what is it? I mean, in the intern interview, of course, they're trying to tell you what they want to professionally develop, but we sit further down with them. We make sure that they are very clear about what they're looking to do, and what they want to showcase. And then, of course, I only say this because it's not intuitive to some folks that I've worked with before here at the agency, that you kind of have to remind some folks to say hi, because we just get so bubbled into our tasks for the day that if you have an intern that's in a cubicle or an office that's off the side, it's important for people to know, that we've onboarded somebody, and to definitely say hi. And also, when they do come on board, in an introduction, we make sure to make this very celebratory, email to the agency saying, we've got this person now, and we do the same when they leave. We do a big celebration of their accomplishments and send them off with a branded mug or something like that. But at the intern, our role at the agency, they are chiefly a presenter to our K through 12 students, especially because we have so many field trips and classroom presentation requests. We serve approximately 100 schools a year, and through those means, that's actually only about a third of our total demand. So the more that the intern can help us, the better, and that's kind of where we need their biggest skill to be at. And we also ask them to do the office organization and ground support for our volunteer coordinator, so that helping to sign people in and carrying things around and keeping people energized in their volunteer effort. Then we also offer a stretch assignment, at least one chief one that they can take through the entire term, which tends to be 3 to 4 months. And then they are new eyes on our efforts. So, bringing up, and they are invited to bring up things that, we may not be seeing. There are challenges that I've faced over the last few years. There's some debate on whether you want a term employee where how long the term will be, 3 to 6 months perhaps. That's what I prefer, because they know when it ends, I know when it ends, and there's not just kind of this inability to kind of move forward with a new thing, because you're not sure how long they're going to last, or I'm not sure if they're going to move on soon. But if they kind of know, like, hey, I'm going to end this on March or on May 31st, they know that they can start looking for, new jobs and things like that, and they know when it ends. And of course, if they were like, hey, we don't have a new job yet, of course we can be, maybe a little bit flexible with some of that, and so that they still have some income and we still get some help. But it's for me, ideally, to make sure that it's a term. They do come in sometimes with the fear of the new. Because in their head, they're worried about messing up, right away. So I try to relay, be awesome. There's no such thing as messing up necessarily, because once again, I'm not really leaning on them critically. It can be more work for the staff, as Lauren was talking about. I also make no assumptions. Like if they said that they, for example, like I talked about with the blog, and they're like, I'm a great writer, and they even offered a good writing piece as a result of their interview, and it turns out not to be the case, I've not made that assumption. I just take them for what it is. Those transportation logistics I talked about. And then in terms of presentation, they may be really good, and they may have been in front of kids a couple of times before, but they may not have the full skill set to do like classroom techniques for like classroom management. So, what do you do when a kid's kind of being rambunctious? What do you do when, a kid's not engaged? Those kinds of things. So we have to kind of tend to work with that. But we've had some really clever outcomes. And so, for example, there was an individual who was super into fishing, and he's like, I want to create a brochure for you guys. And so he did a mock up, really detailed, went and did research with our rec team to do it, brochure. We had a task by our board to do some sort of historical module, and I had 2 interns at the time, and they went to UTSA and dug through our archives and came up with all of this, primary document copies. It was amazing. So, and we leveraged it. Love the honest feedback that we've gotten. One of this folks actually created an entire big lesson on water quality, and we still use it to this day. And the same person actually also helped with, she was very ambitious, helped us with the verbiage for interpretive science that we actually have currently out on our mission reach ecosystem restoration project. So when I walk by those signs, I'm like, yes, my intern did that. And then what was really cool too is one of our interns, we were having lots and lots of worms. Well, I would say worms, caterpillars of some sort, at one of our sites. And we were having students come out there, and they, the kids were hypnotized by these caterpillars. And they were real fuzzy, and, turns out, so she identified it, and she made these little popsicle sticks. I'm sure some of you are familiar with those, where it shows the adult version on one side and the larval on the other. But she took initiative and did that, and we have that, and we use it all the time. So little things like that, really great. So I always ask them at the end of the year, or at the end of their time with us, what do you think? What were your initial thoughts when you first came in? What have you gleaned? What were your challenges that you weren't telling us about? And what really takes me back is if they haven't had, and I'm trying to reflect if anybody had any office experience, some of them were floored to get a nameplate at their desk or at the door. They just were blown away by this. And apparently they were telling all their friends. Some of them are just floored to get a desk, like their own personal space. So it doesn't have to be like a desk per se, but it's, this personal space. They were ecstatic to get that. I had several, I would say 30, like 3 of them feel like meetings were like, they thought that meetings were only in TV and movies for effect, and that people actually didn't have meetings like that. It was all done through email and just like a phone call and a visit to the office door. And so one of them actually said, yeah, I actually thought that the professors were making us meet teams that they were putting us in for no real reason. And so that happened 3 out of 6 of them. So that kind of gives you a sense of like how precious this experience can be for them. And then I had a group that 2 of them said that they really enjoyed having an intern partner. So I'm not always able to have 2 interns at a time. But when that did occur, they really liked that because they got to feed off of each other and enjoy each other's company. My personal reflections is that it can be a lot of work, and desired outcomes can fall flat. And you just, once again, move through, did we both do the best that we could? And you can always reflect back on that and modify accordingly. And to me, it was still worth it for the human being I want to be and the positive change I want to see in our field, right? And that ongoing push and growing that community. So for me, always great to do, even if I'm not the person directly doing the intern anymore. Like one of my staff who needs maybe some leadership opportunity might have it. Just wanted to showcase where they were now, because I did keep track, and I think this kind of is a testament to why internships are valuable for everybody. I actually had my first intern go directly to AgriLife and be a NASA coordinator for them, and then for their gardening program. And then she moved on to the city of San Antonio running their tree program. So really great stuff. And she came back and she said she felt so prepared for that interview because of everything she had did with us. So everything from learning the state standards of Texas, to actually being in front of people and presenting, that sealed the deal apparently for AgriLife, according to what she was talking about. So we have one that she moved to a science lab. One has created her own business and kind of like a sustainability approach. The other, she moved to New Mexico to get married. She's interesting. She was a dental assistant. And then she got her master's degree in public policy. So she was trying to bridge all that gap. And so water utility in New Mexico is where she's at now. And another one is at the water utility in New Braunfels. And then I have another one at that zoological park that Disney has. She just left us this last spring to go over there. So they're doing great work. They're doing something that's still in the field, and it's wonderful. And so this is one of my other dogs. I have 4 dogs, 2 small parrots, a cat, and a horse. And it's just you know, my final slide, just to say once again, thank you. I know that was probably a lot of information. I'm eager to learn from you as well. And if I can help anybody at all with guidance, too, let me know. So I don't know if Alice wants to do questions now or.
Thank you so much, Carrie. That was very insightful and informative and funny. And
I try to be funny. That's what I do today.
I liked all your little tips and, you know, insider information, being an internship manager and dealing with interns. It sounds like you've had some really successful folks come out of your program. So congratulations on that.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to check the chat and see if there's any questions. We can go back up. I'm just going to go back up to some of the comments that were coming through when Lauren was presenting, and you all are welcome to add any questions for either Lauren or Carrie in the chat. Let's see.
I'm really pleased with the turnout today.
Yeah, thanks for being here, everyone. It makes it more fun when we have lots of folks involved and contributing. So Jonathan followed up with our question about TTC, and it's the Trail Conservancy in Austin. There are 2 routes in our eco restoration team. One, our outdoor programming, and then landscape maintenance, and they get their funding through budgets, which is probably the most common way. Lauren could probably do a whole presentation on her pitch at South by Southwest. That sounds interesting, even though it was horrifying, it sounds like. All right, any questions you have, just put them in the chat. And if Carrie or Lauren, let's see, Maddie has one from Fossil Rim. Does anyone have tips on finding interns? Favorite job boards? Great question. If anyone has suggestions, you can put them in the chat. And then Carrie and Lauren, if y'all have ideas.
We definitely share with all there are, you know, quite a few environmental nonprofits. So a lot of us meet together for certain committees that support the school district and some for parks. So sharing with all our network partners, because sometimes they have worked with people. We have a couple that work directly with youth that are like in high school and college age. So sharing with those groups as well. And then some connections to professors at local universities who are teaching related type of, like, you know, environmental or outdoor programming. And then sharing through all our social media and newsletter, friends of, you know, former staff members, or even like the people we contracted with in the past actually shared some of our stuff. So that was very helpful, I think, having just people who know what we do sharing what we do.
It's hard to say how people stumble across our job ads. I do send them out to Texas Children in Nature Network, more locally. And any of our partners that we do work with tend to get the job ad. We, you know, post on social media too. And in the end, though, you know, our applicant pool tends to be a bit small. So I'm seeing these resources come in and I'm thinking, perhaps I can leverage those opportunities as well, the ones that are in the chat. So thanks for providing those. As once again, you know, I usually get these great interns, but the pool tends to be low. So cool.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Yeah, I think just wherever you can, spreading the word about your internship opportunities through your networks and these different suggestions here and boards. And then I'm glad you mentioned Texas Children Nature Network, Carrie. And we have a job web page, you know, where people are posting jobs and internships and things like that. So we try to share that out and make that available on the website. Hannah Marble has a question. Do you have any resources for acquiring funding for internship positions? That's the hard part. So Lauren shared a
I'm still
few.
looking. Yeah, I'm still looking. So if anybody
looking.
does, please post it. Definitely, you know, I think there are some opportunities through grants. I'm not sure where you're located, but City of FAR. Yeah, our city had a couple of grants that they were specifically, one was geared towards food justice, and the other one was had a different context of work we do. I can't remember what that one was, but both of them we were able to leverage to be able to fund a portion, not the whole thing, but a portion of the internship.
Great. Any other questions? No worries if there aren't. We're almost at time. I do, before we sign off today, you're welcome to put any questions in the chat as I'm doing this, but I wanted to put in a couple of links and reminders in the chat before we close out. Let me just scan the chat one more time. Anna says, thank you. Let's see. Liz mentions to partner with universities that have some work study. Yes, I know that's something I personally have done, and other jobs that I've had working with University of Texas UTeach, Texas State University. It's a great idea. SkillBridge, we work with our city where our city pays interns and we host them. And the Texas Workforce Commission has some resources. We were hoping to get someone from their organization on to talk about some funding sources that they have. I do have some resources from them that I will make available in our follow-up email as a resource for you all to go check out on your own. Those are all really great. And then I just wanted to thank everyone for participating today and being involved and coming to learn a little bit more through this professional development opportunity. We're excited to be offering these quarterly. So if you have suggestions for future professional development topics, please put that in the evaluation. So I have a link to the evaluation in the chat, and I will also send that out in the follow-up email with the recording of the webinar today. We encourage you all to become a Texas Children in Nature Network partner if you aren't already. We also encourage you all to donate to our organization, and we have a link for that to be able to offer more continuing education and webinar resources like this one. Our summit is coming up in about 3 weeks, December 7th through the 9th, and we are still offering registration. So I've put the link to that as well. We hope you can join us in Austin. It's at the AT&T Conference Center at the University of Texas at Austin. And I also put in the link to our next webinar, which is called Blazing the Trail, Finding Body Diversity and Inclusion in Outdoor Spaces. And it's basically going to be a conversation with Kara Richardson Whiteley, who's an author and an advocate, and then a licensed marriage therapist named Meredith Nisbet. But that's going to be on January 4th. We're going to take a break in December, and then we'll be back offering our monthly webinars in January. And I'm just going to take a peek. Lauren says, thank you. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, again, we appreciate you being here and your comments and your questions, and we hope to see you on our next one. Y'all have a great rest of your day and your week. Thank you.